You are doing a lot of stuff. You have oversight of everything you do. How do you balance it all?
There really is no balance. It's a counterbalance. It comes down to prioritization. It's like, okay, today, this week, this month, this quarter, this year, what am I trying to get accomplished? What are the KPIs that I need to be thinking about? How many revenue generating meetings am I having? If somebody says I'd be interested in doing business together, how many of those meetings per week am I actually moving forward? How many proposals am I getting out through the program, through the brokerage to be able to be successful?
Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Paths of Progress. I'm your host Alex Kononov, and today's guest is Logan Freeman, a former NFL athlete who's now a powerhouse in real estate, investor, developer, and founder of MWCRE Advisors. From his first deal to now leading a $275 million commercial real estate pipeline, Logan brings a rare mix of discipline, strategy, and a vision. We're going to dig into how he built his portfolio, the lessons he learned along the way, and where he's headed next. Logan, welcome to the show.
I'm excited to be here, Alex. Thank you for hosting me, and I'm hoping to be able to drop some knowledge today for all of the listeners, and hopefully they could take something away that they learned from one of my mistakes, from the past. And I think that's so important. So thank you for what you do, and I appreciate the opportunity to share with your guests and listeners today.
And thank you for coming today. Really, it's an honor to have you on our podcast. Listen, Logan, for people who don't know you, I know you're big on Midwest and commercial real estate, but we're nationwide. Tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you discover real estate in the first place?
Yeah. Well, I grew up in Jefferson City, Missouri, which is the capital of Missouri for all of those that don't know. And you probably, I have a big map right behind me on my wall. You probably can't even pick out where Missouri is. It's one of the flyover states. Now, it has, specifically Kansas City, has gotten a lot of press here over the last 5-6 years, and more recently the last couple of weeks. But my start in real estate happened because I was fired. I was fired from my last W-2 job in 2017. Okay. And so when that happened, I had read so many different books on entrepreneurship, on sales, on leadership, and I found some common themes, right? And one of those common themes was having a diversified or uncorrelated streams of income, and real estate being one of those. Well, in my master's program, I remember going through all of these chart of accounts and statistical regression analysis. And, this was supposed to be business. And I said, I'm not going to be doing any of this. And now I can just ask ChatGPT what the answer is, and it's going to tell me. So how is this actually, business, right? And so I was trying to figure out, what do true business people do? And they have a product or a service, and they create a market for it. Well, through my jobs, I was selling either services or selling some products, but nothing that you could tangibly touch and understand, right? And I always say that commercial real estate is not a complex kind of asset class. It's not simple, and it's not easy, but it's not that complex. I mean, they're boxes, and people lease those boxes from you, or they buy those boxes from you. Okay. So, for me, really getting into something that I could put my hands on, I could touch, I could see, I could feel, being tangible was really important. So after I was fired for my last W-2 sales job, I said, okay, what can I do? And I had been doing some real estate just in Kansas City, kind of live-in flips, right? So I would go buy a house, and then I did what I did best, and I picked up a hammer and I started to renovate that home. I'd live in it for 2 years, and I would sell that house. Well, I did that a couple times, and after the second time I did that, the check that I received was more than my annual salary. And I said, you know what? I think there's something to this real estate thing, right? And so when I was fired from my job, I said, okay, I think real estate is a part of what I want to get involved in. And just so happens at the time, one of my early mentors had just landed a $50 million fund as a client here in Kansas City to buy single family homes. Now, you have to remember, this is 7 or 8 years ago. Kansas City was not as popular as it is now. So our whole methodology was to go buy, renovate, rent out, and do that at scale. Okay, so we did that 265 times. And I believe we were about the sixth group in the country to go through a CoreVest portfolio refinance. And so that process told me, wow, you can actually create value. And here's how you do it, right? I could see it. Again, you take an old house, you renovate it, you rent it out, and then we applied, some sort of multiple to that revenue stream, and you have a new value. My simplistic mind could figure that out. And so I didn't want to do single family homes. I wanted to do multifamily, and I wanted to do commercial real estate. And so I started to do a lot of brokerage in that business and figure out, how do I find opportunities for investors? We seemingly live in what we are calling a deal state, and many people on the coast live in money states. And so I just tried to become a pipeline of the money into the deals, right? And so I started to understand multifamily, neighborhood retail shopping centers, industrial, office, all these different asset classes. And then I could finally, and then I use my marketing, right? That's a huge part of what we do in real estate. And I do believe that's where real estate's going, is audience and brand awareness and social media. It's so important. I know we're going to touch on that today. But I created a market that would generate leads, and then I would listen and say, what is your risk tolerance? What are you trying to accomplish? And then I would go match that with the asset classes that I thought were the best. And through the last 9 years, I've been blessed to be a part of around $400 million worth of transactions spanning single family homes, self-storage facilities, hospitality, retail, office, industrial, almost every asset class as an owner as well as a broker. And that's what I do today, is try to find those imbalances in the marketplace and help people make informed decisions.
You went super quickly from A to Z. Hey, I just started flipping homes, I got fired, and I'm like, okay, one of the top brokers out there. Listen, we have to remind a bit for our listeners. I know it seems like it was one day for you because it's like went through quickly, but let's do a little more granular into steps.
Sure.
Right? The first things that you got into, you got fired. You on the side, you were doing flipping. You live there. You did DIY. I appreciate that a lot, because I feel like a lot of wannabe investors, they don't want to actually do anything.
Yeah.
But it's important to go through this process, to learn those mistakes. As myself, I had to do it during COVID in one of my properties, and it's just part of the journey. But now you know what to do, how to do with contractors, how much time and how much can it cost to do some projects like this, hiring subcontractors. You got your investors that end up being taking you on board of his larger venture, and you working on this. At what capacity did you work on those properties? It's such a large acquisition, 260 property flips. And at what time period was that? Was it like within a year, within 2 years?
Yeah, so my first foray was as the head of acquisitions for that fund. And so I was simply a vendor. And so I was able to see 200 transactions, be completed and go through. And we did all the renovations. We did all of the management. We did all of the leasing, right? And so that was really important for me to be able to see every step in the process. We did that over an 18-month period. So it was pretty quick, very, very fast. And then I transitioned out of that and started doing more of the multifamily and commercial.
Love it. Now, again, back to the question, right? You went through a single family and you got such a tremendous experience in single family, house flipping and stabilizing this asset, because it's, it's knowledge on its own. But going to multifamily, to commercial, it's a whole different animal, right? Mm-hmm. And now, what made you to take this leap into go to commercial space? I know it's everyone in a smaller game want to, hey, what else is out there? But people usually tend to stay at their league. So how did you take that leap?
Yeah, well, what I was doing was an investment, right? I mean, the houses were for rent. They were holding them. They still own them. And so I looked at this and saw a model, right? The model was buy an undervalued asset, add value to it, rent it out. And then if you can do that at scale, then you can get better financing terms and you can get a larger valuation, not based off of the comparable sales, but off of an income stream and a multiple. And so I just applied that same methodology to a different asset class, whether that be multifamily or commercial. I knew that's where I was always kind of heading, right? Was the larger scale assets. I was able to see quite a few inefficiencies, and there's a reason the build to rent market has blown up so fast and is so popular now. Is scattered site, single family home management and leasing is very difficult. It's very timely. And so I was able to see, okay, they have 265 doors, but they are spread across 265 properties. And so that is 265 separate roofs, 265 separate HVACs, 265 separate driveways, yards, tenants that you have to deal with. And so the efficiencies of plopping 265 individuals or residents in a multifamily property all on the same property, I started to see those opportunities for folks, right? And so I think it was one, the inefficiencies of the single family home market, specifically scattered site, not necessarily built for rent. And then two, Kansas City was on a growth trajectory that I could see, right? Underutilized land was being redeveloped. Properties in specific areas were starting to see revitalization. And so I was tracking population growth and job growth and what was going on in specific areas. And I said, I think Kansas City has a lot going for it in regards to affordability and for investor interest. And so I think being in the commercial and multifamily market as we continue to grow as a metropolitan statistical area is probably a good bet to be in. And so, and I also knew, this would probably be the third point would be, the single family home for, the BRRRR methodology, buy, renovate, rent out, refinance, and repeat, was getting more difficult, right? I mean, single family homes, we were now competing with owner occupants that were willing to pay 30-40% above list price, right? So really that kind of method and that investment thesis started to really pull back. And so I said, I got to figure out what the next pivot is. And that was the multifamily and commercial market, because there's so many different avenues to go down.
Yeah, I love it. And I think another key word is important for our listeners is economy of scale, right? So the same principle applies when you have 200 units under one roof. Now you have to buy 200 toilets. Now when you have to buy 200 appliances, and when you buy in bulk, it's a different price. When you scale this, then it's much more scalable and much more business efficient in terms of progression and growth.
Yeah, Alex, the other thing I'll say about that is, the management and the types of businesses that you get to interact with larger scale assets is just is a different level, right? You don't see startup companies necessarily going in and saying, oh, yes, I can manage that 350 unit apartment complex, or, oh, yes, I'll manage that 1 million square foot industrial facility, right? These are large institutional type of management companies that have scale themselves. They have resources, they have technology, they have hiring. And that also is, I think, a very important thing for people to sort of think about. If you're dealing with a 1 million square foot property versus a single family home, you got to think about what you're paying that manager and that management company. And whether it be $100,000 a year or $10,000 a year, you're likely going to get a different level of service and a different level of sophistication.
100%. And it's more to that, right? They have to have experience, and you have different systems in place, because you have to have different systems in place to manage larger buildings, larger opportunities. And you don't have this on the single family market. On the smaller players, guys that manage 20, 30 units, they can't afford a larger system and more expensive and more efficient to send reminders, to send renewals automatically. And now you have backlog and delays, and you have some issues with tenants. Mm-hmm. No, 100% agree on that. Now, did you also have some mentorship program or networking events? So it's still, same question here. I understand you figure out the deficiencies here, but it's a little different from single family in terms of underwriting, in terms of looking at the asset, mm-hmm. and different kind of players, because you kind of need network to understand, to get into that market.
Yes.
So did you just went into yourself and you just network on the go, or did you had some push from someone else in your life?
Yeah, well, I've had many different mentors in my life. And frankly, I would say most of the mentors that have had the biggest impact on me, I've never met, right? These are the Ed Miletts of the world. These are the Zig Ziglars, the Brian Tracys, the Tony Robbins. I've never met any of them, but I am a large learner, right? And so I'm a kinesthetic learner. So I read, I listen, but then I learn by doing. And so taking action, I think, is really important. There's a quote out there: knowledge is not power, it's potential power. Knowledge plus action is power. And so, I really took that to heart, right? Is I went and learned, and I read the books, and I went to some seminars, right? I think it was the Real Estate Guys seminar that I went to early on in my career. And then I just started really figuring out, how do I get more reps at this, right? And so there's listed properties out there. So I would go underwrite every single listed property, right? And I would try to figure out, what's the strategy? What's the value add? Is there any value add? Even though they're saying there is there actually? Well, what do I need to do to find that value add? Well, I have to understand absorption rates, lease rates, occupancy, vacancy, all of these different things. And I could bring some of that construction and renovation knowledge that I had previously, created and had from experience, and able to tie all of that together, right? And so I would just build my own underwriting models. And this is before artificial intelligence was out there, right? And so it was, Excels of, rent rolls and trailing financials and trying to figure out, what's the story here? Yeah, and I think that I have thousands of those reps now that I can look at something, and I know 3 or 4 things to kind of look at specifically to that asset class that allows me to kind of dive into that project really quickly. And that has served me well, right? And so, I think that one thing that folks have to understand is, I didn't necessarily just do this overnight, right? I mean, these are thousands of reps, now probably 600, 700 transactions that I have been a part of. And it's a lot of experience on every single one of them. And, it's getting the reps for it. It's like, I saw somebody post on LinkedIn the other day. They're like, man, I love going out to the golf course, but I'm not a golfer. And I said, well, I mean, if you think about what Tiger Woods did, early on in his career, and in even when he was at the height of his career, he was on the range, for 10 hours doing 1,000 swings. The best golfer in the world was swinging his club 1,000 times, right? So it's like, I haven't even been doing real estate for 10 years, right? I started in really 2018. So I'm on my, 7th or 8th year. And so I have a lot of reps underneath my belt, but how much better am I going to be 10 years from now? Right. And that's what I think about. So I think it's a lot about just getting those at bats, getting those reps under your belt, and you're going to learn through doing. I think that's the best way to do it.
I love it. I think it's a really important point here. The repetition and the power is in consistency, right? You just consistent, you stay on the road, you stay on the path, and it will come your way. But let me ask you this. You said it was important for you in the beginning to underwrite a lot of properties and work through properties and understand all dynamics. Was it important for the brokerage side or for your own ownership acquisition side?
Yeah, both, right? Because if I'm out there underwriting all of the deals that are on the market, I understand when a really good deal comes by, right? It's like, okay, if I know that there's 100 properties out there listed, for example, and the average cap rate is 6.25% in this asset class, well, if something truly comes around at like 7.5 or 8% in a good area, now I know what the market is. So being able to be in the know and on the field every single day has been instrumental, not only in my investing career, but also in my brokerage career. And I do think that those two things go together. A lot of people ask me, well, how do you pick which deals to buy versus which deals to sell? And, it's like, look, guys, a broker investor, we're not in the market to acquire properties every single day, right? And a lot of times, there's cycles, right? You build a portfolio, then you have to work on stabilizing the portfolio. Then you work on the disposition of that portfolio, and then you may have some more capital to go outlay, right? And so I thought it would be very beneficial, not only for my clients, but for myself as an investor, to figure out what's on the market, what's moving off market, and how do I figure out what a truly good deal is. Not to mention that my cost of capital might be a lot different, and my goals and strategies are probably a lot different than somebody who's 55 or 60 years old and are looking for very, very, easy money that's stable, right? Instead of being able to be a 35-year-old in the industry, knowing that I probably have another 25, 30 years in this industry, I can take a little bit different risk profile, right? So I think that those are things that have built upon themselves.
100%. In my first year of underwriting real estate, buying first assets, I underwrote 500 properties with bigger pockets calculator, and I was just relentless. I knew every single property, I knew every single neighborhood in that city, and I was there physically.
That's what it takes.
Yep, 100%. And listen, so what was first? Was it your first commercial property you bought, or you started your commercial selling for other people?
Yeah. Well, I definitely started brokering multifamily and commercial properties before I purchased one. But I think that from my first acquisition, I remember reading, I think it was Joe Fairless's apartment syndication book, and this wasn't necessarily an apartment deal, but I had a client who was in California, and he was looking to buy a property, and it was a mixed use property, so it had short term rentals as well as a triple net lease bagel shop on the main level. And he said, I love the numbers on this deal. I think it's really great, but how are we going to manage it? So I pull out that book and I start reading. And I said, you know what? We can structure this as a joint venture. We'll structure it as an 80% ownership to you, 20% to me. I'll be your boots on the ground asset and property manager for this deal. And that's how I structured my first kind of acquisitions, was taking a little bit of ownership. I found the property, and then I was asset management. We still own multiple of those today, which have been fantastic. And so that's how I got started, was, again, reading, but then applying that knowledge. And then I had created a market, right? I was on BiggerPockets myself in the forums, finding people who were interested in Kansas City, and just building relationships, and then truly just, rolling up the sleeves and going and putting in the work. Now I'm thankful to say that I have teams and I have people that I can rely on, that I pay to manage those properties. But early on, it was me doing all of that work.
I love it. So you basically created value for investors, and not only you just ask, hey, give me that portion, I'm gonna do it, but you created, hey, I can help you with this and this task. I'll be boots on the ground because you understand the pain points of these transactions, and you provided solution.
That's exactly
and
right.
It worked out for everyone. You created win-win situation. You didn't have to come up money in this case, I'm assuming. And now you're a part owner, but you also providing this value on a daily basis. You are there physically to check and oversee the property and have a peace of mind for this investor out of state. Love it.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, that's what Hormozy talks about, right? Is all about the value equation. What is your client's dream outcome, right? And have you identified that? After that, it's your goal to give them a high perceived likelihood of success. And then we want to reduce the effort that it takes for them to do that, as well as the time that it takes for them, right? And so if you can think about all of your decisions, if you are working on sales, you're working on marketing, you're working on any type of project, as the value equation, you'll find ways to reduce friction and add more value to the people that you're working with. And I didn't realize that that's what I was doing at the time. Now he's put that framework out there for everyone to learn from, but it's very simple. But I think that's what you have to try to master. And that's what I was doing early in my career.
A lot of people come to sense naturally, and that's how he came to it, right? And it's normal for people to discover it on their own way. But now you have shortcut with those books, with those contents that you put in a way, he's put in a way, and everyone else who's having this proven track record, and now everyone can use it for their benefit. So let's talk a little bit more about your brokerage. How big is your deal volume today? And what do you do on that side?
Yeah, our target this year is to complete $100 million in commercial real estate. And I think that's an achievable metric for us. Q1 has been was very slow. It's always slow in the commercial real estate market. Q2 started to pick up. Q3, we posted some really good numbers nationally. And I think we'll end up somewhere from a transaction volume between $375 to about $425 billion nationally, which is not, anywhere close to 2021, 2022, but they are rebounds, and I think we're stabilizing. There's been a lot of things going on in regards to volatility, right? I mean, it wasn't that long ago in April that we were talking about tariffs and now interest rates and, geopolitical risks and all these different components. And so I think that, that has had some drag on the industry. But what we are seeing now, specifically in Kansas City, is capital is out there. It is moving. It's moving to the trophy assets first. It's definitely moving in the coast. But we are starting to really pick up in regards to multifamily, industrial, and retail is still kind of lagging behind because, and I have a whole dissertation about retail, but it's difficult. It's an asset class that is absolutely in demand. But if you were an owner 2-3 years ago and you have locked in your debt at 4 or 5%, your NOI growth has not kept up with where the interest rate's going to be and or where your operational expenses have been. And so a lot of times those assets, while they are high in demand, they still require 7% cap rate to trade, and the values are almost what they were 2 or 3 years ago. So we don't see a lot of retail necessarily, at least stabilized retail in good locations trading. But we do see a lot of people taking opportunistic bets in regards to large box retail that's well located. We've seen that with Bed Bath & Beyond. We've seen that with a couple other big brands that had great retail locations. Those spaces are being repurposed today. So I'm optimistic about where transaction volume goes for Q3, for Q4, and I think that 2026 is going to be a really solid year. I'm a big proponent of the 18.6-year real estate cycle. So after 2026, I'm not necessarily sure what happens, but I do think we've got at least good 12 to 15 months to transact commercial real estate here in the United States.
Very interesting take. Now, sounds like you're doing a lot of sense and you transact on a lot of different assets. Is there one specific asset that you like to try to focus? Because, everyone saying that it's good to stay focused in one lane. You're good at it. You're an expert, right? What is your take on it?
Yeah.
And what is your focus of your firm?
Yeah. So, my firm is very different than most, right? I sit at the kind of the top, right? And I have a lot of relationships with property owners across multiple asset classes. And then we have brokers that specialize in those asset classes specifically that I will bring on to those projects, or I'll pass those deals across. So, and one of them that I think is highly advantageous and/or my favorite right now is small bay industrial properties, because what has been developed the past 3 to 5 years has been large logistical hubs with 500,000 to 1 million square foot leases. And what's been underserved is that space that's under 50,000 square feet, specifically flex, right? You might have some office component and a warehouse component. The current stock of that product type in at least Kansas City is old. And so the ceiling heights, the technology, the mechanical, the electrical, the plumbing is all outdated. And so what businesses are looking for now is, where can I get automation? I need specific power. I need 14-foot to 16-foot doors, garage doors. I need 18 to 20-foot ceilings. And so that's what I think the big opportunity is. Additionally, with all of the onshoring and people wanting to control their supply chain logistics and management, and either be onshore or nearshore, I think that that's bringing back a ton of jobs. And there's going to be a big tailwind for small bay industrial, anywhere from 1,500 square feet to 10,000 square feet. So I think we're working on about 6 of those projects right now, either working on the leasing side, the pre-development side, and or the sales side for individuals. So I like that asset class a lot right now.
It's very good and exciting. But what about your personal investment side, your personal investment arm, right? Are you still into multifamily as much, or you sounds like you're passionate about retail now? You trying to diversify as well?
Yeah, still have about 6 neighborhood retail shopping centers across the city, as well as a large industrial facility and an office building. Still the owner of about 700 or 800 multifamily units. We have not acquired any more multifamily, as I do believe that that market got overheated for quite some time. I would be willing to step back into that space, just not where the bases are currently. And so I've been doing a lot of land and land development, and getting land entitled for developers. And so I think that is a blue ocean strategy where I'm able to interface with the municipalities, figure out where their plan and their strategic growth initiatives are, and then find land parcels that can be annexed into the city limits, rezoned from agriculture to commercial or to industrial or to multifamily, or a mix of those. And then I'm working with many different developers that are trying to get a presence here in Kansas City. And so I will either, my investment strategy right now is either to work on purchasing or getting control of that land, taking it through that approval process, and then serving that up to the developer, or doing a partnership model or just a vendor model using our resources. So that's where I'm spending a lot of my time today, Alex.
Yeah, I feel like it's a natural progression for every real estate investor, starting small and commercial and then development, right? We're all excited about development because now you can build a new product and you know what you're talking about. You actually creating this structure with your own will, you can say. And but again, it sounds like commercial is very broad statement, right?
Yes.
You're doing and multifamily ground up and commercial retail. How do you pick what to put on that specific plot? Because you're doing rezoning, right? So you're going from agriculture,
Yeah.
you can go easy direction. So how do you decide? Do you have specific team members that focusing on doing market research analysis for this particular plot, or do you just have a feel of the market?
Yeah, most of the municipalities, and there's 18 that we work with around the Kansas City area, they will have a land use code, right? They have a map. And so they're going to tell you what they are either wanting, they're incentivizing, or what they would like to see in a specific area. For example, I'm not going to have a lot of success going into a neighborhood subdivision area that, even if there is 5 to 10 acres, and plopping down a logistical hub, right? They're not going to want an industrial property there. So I think it starts with understanding the frameworks that the municipalities put forth, understanding the land use code, the map that they have put forth, and then working with them to say, in the planning and zoning commissions, to say, hey, what would you like to see this land rezoned to, right? And so that's a lot of work. And so, yeah, I think that's an important, kind of process that we can bring to the developers that we work with. And since we are doing so many land transactions and have those relationships, we either know where the path of progress is going, or if somebody sends me an idea, I'm just going to show a site plan right now and says, hey, that's a mixed use concept right there that has retail, industrial, and multifamily that I'm helping the ownership group put together. It's like, that's a long process. But if you can take, and I've seen this forced appreciation play, a piece of land that is not used in its highest and best capacity, and you can put a plan together and actually put a strategic initiative where you start taking steps to actually rezoning that plan and getting a preliminary plat approved. Now you have just taken something, and this is Ricardo's law of economic rent. That's the definition of what we're doing, which is just simply says that the value of land is not derived necessarily from the capital or effort that's put into it. It's derived from the scarcity and the infrastructure that's around it, right? And so I think if you can, as an investor, understand that methodology, you will be able to pick out specific areas in locations that will allow you to say, hey, that is a path of progress. We know that there's a new sewer benefit district going in, or power or water is right there at the street. This can be something different. Let's go have a preliminary meeting with the Planning and Zoning Commission to figure out what they would like to see there. And again, that's a long process, but what that value brings 6 to 9 months down the road is, what could take a value add multifamily deal 5 years to get, right? I mean, you could take that piece of land, force appreciate that through the zoning and through the annexation process and the entitlement process. And, you might have a piece of land that was worth $1, per square foot, and now you can sell it for $6 per square foot. And that's a big value add opportunity. I just do not see a lot of people really doing that. And it's probably because it's brain damaging. It's difficult to figure out, and you have to have a lot of expertise.
Yeah, and political layer on it was the local municipalities, and now it's extra burden to process.
That's exactly right.
Logan, I want to talk about something else right now. This is like hot topic of nowadays, AI. Yeah. And how do you integrate AI into your commercial real estate strategy? What's the most exciting use cases you have?
Yeah, I mean, so many different use cases. I think that AI does a really good job doing market research, right? I think that is, and Dan Pink talked about in his book, To Sell is Human. We have moved from information asymmetry, where one person or one development group or one industry owns that information, to information parity, where now that information is widely available, to where I think we are now, which is kind of information overload, right? And everybody's like, what the heck do I do with all that? So we are using artificial intelligence to help us analyze large amounts of data and market statistics to be able to pinpoint what is the likelihood of something moving in this direction, right? And being able to aggregate 15 to 17 different resources or source information in about 30 seconds to create a market report, right? And one thing that I think is really beneficial is being able to take what I'll call the chat GPT or the perplexity word salad, right? It's just that long output that you get, and nobody's going to read that. So we utilize another tool called gamma.app, and I'll take that information, I'll load that into Gamma. In less than a minute, I have a beautiful presentation that would have taken me hours or days on Canva previously to create. So I am legitimately taking market reports from verified sources created in GenSpark. That's another super agent that I love to use, or Perplexity or ChatGPT. I'm fact checking that, and then I'm taking that over to Gamma, and in less than 3 minutes, I might be able to have a market report. And if you'd like to see any of those, just feel free to go over to my newsletter on LinkedIn, and you can see many different market reports for Kansas City put there. That is just one use case, right? The other use cases are being able to create, these really high, in-depth, what I call property performance audits, right? And in the brokerage community, a terminology is broker opinion of value. What's my property worth, right? Well, somebody will come to me and say, Logan, I own 6 properties. I'm trying to figure out which ones I should hold, refinance, and which ones I should sell. And so I'm able to look at their debt maturities, their NOI growth over the past 3 years, the rent growth that we've seen in that specific corridor. I'm able to layer in all of that information into AI and then have it act as a commercial real estate analyst and say, give me the hold sale refinance analysis on this $57 million portfolio. And an hour later, I have actual inferences that I can actually go in, review, and say, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that. Or it's taking 19 different documents that I upload, whether that be T12s from 2004, rent rolls, CapEx plans, all of these things, and it's aggregating that information into one source document that I can now actually make informational, decisions upon. So I think it's twofold. Marketing and sales is fantastic, being able to create the market reports and visualize your information in a different way. But secondly is, being able to actually have analytical resources at your fingertips now is extremely powerful as an investor and a broker.
100%. It's like it's substituting 10 manpower, brain power into one little tool, and now you can do it. But again, like you said, we get in too much data overload, and we have analysis paralysis of what we're going to do with this data, how to aggregate.
Right.
Now you have your actionable items, how you can fix that, and how you can structure it for yourself, and you can create your own market analysis reports. I love it. Thank you for sharing that. I actually am going to check out your market report for Kansas City because I wanted to see it myself as a multifamily investor and see when will be the right time to invest in multifamily, right? The right time was 10 years ago. Now the best time is right now, as they say. But especially if we get rate reduction, maybe there'll be something, especially in the larger multifamily space.
Absolutely.
Different. I was just quoted on a 200 unit multifamily, and it was 5.36%, 80% LTV, 5-year to interest only. Amazing rate.
Right.
And this is again, back to the point of economy of scale. This is how you guys scale, because you can get to these rates on the single family and small multifamily, or even smaller, larger multifamily, but smaller scale. Okay, now Logan, this is great. I love how we roll in here, but now I want to talk a little bit about your mentorship and growth and passing the torch to other people around you, right? I know you're big on that. So can you share your coach and your mentorship and what do you do on that front?
Yeah, this came out of necessity, but having 5 brokers myself, I found myself training and mentoring people during what I call the golden hours. It's the hours that we need to be out producing, and that just wasn't working. And so I partnered up with a good buddy of mine, Tyler Cobble, and we said, look, you've got brokers, I've got brokers. We need to create some sort of program. We both have a lot of good content and information. Let's put this together. So we created a curriculum, sort of like, hey, if you're getting started in commercial real estate brokerage, what should you know? Additionally, hey, there's so many new tools coming out. Like how is somebody supposed to actually infer what AI to utilize in their business? What automations do they need to have set up? What CRM should they be looking into? What's actually grabbing attention right now? How do you create the market? So we created the Brokers Mastermind, which is just at brokersmastermind.com, and we've kind of grown this just organically, and we have 20 members across the United States now that are showing up on every single Tuesday evening, and we go through their deals, we go through their challenges, we go through their wins, we help them set their goals. We go through Alex Hormozy's framework. How do you put the $100 million offer framework to some business like commercial real estate, right? And how do you create that offer? All of these different components, cold calling, underwriting, all of these different things that we saw many different brokerages just lacking, right? You oftentimes as a broker will get paired up, a junior broker will get paired up with a more seasoned broker, but those people are very busy, and so it's very difficult to get their time. And so we have a lot of people that are very smart, very hardworking, that just weren't getting that mentorship. So we created that program, and it's just blossomed, and we're excited for the growth. And I think we've got something very unique in the marketplace. You get to talk to 2 people that are actually out there doing it, and I think that it's been well received, and we're helping a lot of people close deals, and now the coolest part about it is that deals are being referred inside of the program, right? I had a client that reached out to me, and they were looking for Denver, Colorado. So I called David up, and I gave him a little background, and guess what? They're under contract for a $7 million deal now. a $7 million deal. So anyways, I think that's really, really interesting and exciting. And it's just something that I absolutely love to do.
I love it. So now the main question, right, for the day. You are doing a lot of stuff. You invest in yourself. I know you said you had teams now to help in business management and stuff, but you still have to oversee. You have to have this ownership oversight of everything you do, regardless your brokerage, your investment portfolios, your mentorship program. It still takes time. How do you balance it all?
Yeah. Well, Gary Keller in The One Thing said that there really is no balance, and it's a counterbalance, and so I think that for me, it comes down to prioritization, right? And it's like, okay, today, this week, this month, this quarter, this year, what am I trying to get accomplished, right? And then I just reverse engineer what are the KPIs that I need to be thinking about in my business. And there's leading indicators and lagging indicators. And for me, the leading indicators are how many meaningful conversations am I having with somebody who wants to sell, buy, or invest in real estate? And then how many revenue generating meetings am I having on a regular basis? So if somebody says I'd be interested in doing business together, how many of those meetings per week am I actually moving forward? And then how many proposals am I getting out? Whether that be letters of intent, new listings, all these different components, right? How many proposals am I getting out through the program and through the brokerage to be able to be successful? And so I've started to track that stuff for years now. And so I've kind of thought about it as an equation to say, if I can do X plus Y, I'm going to get to Z, right? And I heard a quote this morning that just stuck with me. He said, Bedros Keuilian, he's a big investor. He's an immigrant here to this country. I respect the heck out of him. Fit Body Boot Camp and all these different businesses that he's got now. But he said that progress is often invisible, but if you don't give up, it is often inevitable. And I think that is so true, right? You don't want to stop 5 feet from gold. So, it comes down to prioritization. What's most important right now? And the clarifying question that Gary Keller asks in his book is, what's the one thing that I can do right now that makes everything else easier or unnecessary? So 2 books that have really helped me, I guess, with focus and prioritization and all of that is Essentialism by Greg McKeown, I think, and Gary Keller's The One Thing. And those are 2 books that I go back to on a regular basis.
Yeah, I feel like it's a lot to unwind here, but I agree with you. There's a few points that I want to reiterate. There's one thing you mentioned is very important is actionable, quantifiable targets, goals. And you have your annual goal, you divide it by quarters, you understand what you need to do this month, this week to achieve to that targets on a business side. And what another good point is prioritize, right? You have to be okay not to finish everything, because this is just the nature of it. If we finish everything, we're going to have even more work, right? Because we want to be even more productive. It's always going to be chased to finish it. I'm reading right now the book, Our Time Management for Mortals. Check it out. The idea is the same, right? It's like when you're trying to empty go for the lowest hanging fruit, and you're like, okay, I want to empty my email box. And as soon as you empty, you will get more emails will come into your mailbox, and you're going to stuck on this smallest task for ages. And now you have to be okay that your email is never going to be cleared out, and just move on to the most prioritized subjects and tasks to make your day.
That's exactly right. Yeah. I think a lot of, and we didn't really touch on it today, but being an ex-athlete, I think sports teach you how to compete, right? They teach you how to lose, and they also teach you how to show up every day when you don't feel like it, and I think real estate's no different. It's about consistency, pressure, and learning to play through pain, emotionally, financially, and mentally. In brokerage and in entrepreneurship, just like in athletics, I mean, the reps that you put in when no one's watching are the ones that count the most. And that's just something that I try to live by.
And I think to add layer to it, I read a lot about professional athletes. I want to hear your take on it. It's not only about those reps, it's very important, but it's also getting this extra leap, an extra step to push it extra harder every time that you're doing this, now to push it to the next level and to become, because regular people, they don't have this kind of drive. But when you talk about professional athletes, they have this core in their core, and now they have to make it even better every time they're doing this rep.
That's exactly right. I think that perfect, they always say practice makes perfect, but truly perfect practice makes perfect, right? And so it's not just about going up to the range and just slapping 150 balls. It's, hey, am I actually acting like this is a shot that I'm on the course? Am I going through my pre-shot routine? What's my target? What am I trying to hit? How hard do I want to hit this ball? Where do I want it to land? All of those different components, right? And so there's a difference between just getting out there and shotgunning versus being rifled in. And I think that's something that early on in my career, I was much more of a shotgunner, right? Like, hey, let me just put all this action out there, and I think that Tony Robbins really cleared this up for me, because I was a big Grant Cardone 10X guy, right? Just take massive action. And I heard Tony Robbins one time say, you need to take massive strategic action, right? And that guy's feeding hundreds of millions, if not billions of people every single year through his charity and his nonprofits and things like that. I mean, that is strategic action that he has taken over the period of time. So as you go through your career, as you're on your journey, if you can become more strategic through reflection and through understanding what went well and what didn't go well. Ray Dalio talks about that quite a bit in his book, Principles, which is another phenomenal read. I think you can get better, and you don't have to put as much practice in if you're doing the perfect practice. Early on in your career, you may have to just take a lot of action, but get better and take better action, and you'll get better results.
I think that's a powerful message. Okay, Logan, I have last few questions for you. I know we have a time limit. So quick hits, lightning round. So whatever first comes to your mind, let us know. One book or resource that shaped your mindset, real estate mindset.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be Tim Grover's Relentless. He coached Michael Jordan. He coached Kobe Bryant, many other professional athletes. He's a speaker now, but it talks about the idea that there's kind of 3 levels to not just business, but athletics, all of it. And it's a cooler, a closer, and a cleaner. And there's different levels. And it teaches you the mindset about if you want to be truly the greatest. And so I think that adopting that type of mindset and resiliency is extremely important in business.
Most important trait a real estate leader should develop.
Listening. Yeah, absolutely listening. Communication is key, and you cannot communicate if you don't listen. So you need to really skill up in listening to people and what they are truly saying. With all you mentioned all the different things that I have going on in my life. If I don't truly listen to what somebody has said or read what they have written, I start to make assumptions. And when I start to make assumptions, that's when bad decisions happen. And so listening and reading and recommunicating what you believe you have heard is probably the top trait that I can instill in people.
100%. Usually the simplest sense is the most important. Okay. One thing you wish you knew earlier in your real estate journey.
Yeah, I think it's be quick, but don't hurry. And that's from John Wooden. It's like, look, you don't want to get in a rush to just be in a rush, right? But you need to be quick, right? And so, Craig Gorshell also has a book out there, and I forget what it's called, but he talks about GETMO, GETMO. It's good enough to move on, right? Like you need to get things 80% of the way there and then take action on them. Same thing here. Be quick, but don't hurry, right? We don't want to get in a hurry and miss a lot of details, but we also want to stay quick. We want to be nimble and pivot and take action. I think that's really important, and there's different frameworks that you can kind of think through, or mental models that can help with that.
Taking action, absolutely. Logan, I have one last question for you. If someone want to reach out and find out what you have going on your commercial brokerage or your personal investing, maybe be part of your investment journey, how people can reach out to you? Yeah,
you can find me on LinkedIn, Logan Freeman, Mr. Kansas City. I should pop up. I'm active there every single day. And then also my website is MWCRE Advisors.com. Just search Logan Freeman, Kansas City, and you should be able to find me. I appreciate that, Alex.
Awesome. Logan, thank you so much for coming today. I really appreciate your journey and your sharing all your not an easy path to real estate success story, what you are today. And thank you again.
Thank you for having me. It was a blessing.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming. And to everyone tuning in, if you got value from this episode, be sure to like, subscribe, and share with someone who's on their own path of progress. And as always, keep moving forward.